The Batman was released more than a month ago, and in fact the movie is going to be out on HBO Max pretty soon. And after having it watched at least 3 times in theaters, and I'm probably going to watch it at least once on HBO Max when it comes out on April 18th, I wanted to talk about the best scenes in the movie. Scenes that stood out to me, scenes that made me go wow, and scenes that just impressed me in general. So here is a list of top 5 scenes from The Batman, in my opinion, and these are going to be ranked in order, starting from number 5 all the way to number 1. So let's get right into it and let's see if my top 5 match with your top 5. Starting off with number 5, one of my favorite scenes was at the funeral, right when Coulson was found to be strapped with a bomb and the car crashes into the event that people were at. And the reason why I like that scene, especially the scene between the Batman and Coulson when they're trying to do the riddle, is because of the tension that surrounds it. It's one of those scenes where it puts you on the edge of your seat without any physical action or a high-octane car chase. In fact, the only chase that's going on is the chase with time and trying to make sure that Coulson survives. And there's a lot going on in that moment, in that one scene, and you really gain a lot of insight. The number one thing you gain from that is the fact that there is a bigger society, there is something dark that's controlling everyone, and Coulson is willing to risk his life for the safety of his friends and family to not give up who the Rat is. I think that's a pretty important scene in the movie because you truly see someone else take the fall for this rat rather than letting it out and protecting himself, and it's very meaningful and impactful to me. The whole tension surrounding it, as I said before, between the timer going down and figuring out who the Rat is and Coulson ultimately not giving up the name was pretty intense. The next scene in the movie is a similar scene. It was when Carmine Falcone is eventually caught by Batman and he's walking him out in front of the press, and there's a lot going on in that scene that I really like. One, I like that it gives you a small sense of conclusion / completion, that the Rat has finally been caught and the murders are going to stop. Another important thing I got from that scene was the fact when the Penguin and Carmine Falcone started arguing, it showed that not everyone blindly supports another person, and in fact, the Penguin didn't know much of what was going on in the background in some instances, and the fact that Penguin wasn't just going to support Carmine because they've worked together. And the fact that there is still some tension between Penguin and Carmine, and I think that gave a lot of plot development to the Penguin and ultimately setting up his TV show for whenever that's going to come out. It was also really cool to see Carmine believe that he was going to get out of prison no matter what and that he was going to go scot-free, but then ultimately find out that the entire police force is, or at least some of the police forces outside those doors waiting to capture him, and that his illusion was wrong and that there is still some sense of hope in Gotham City. Overall, a good scene, a small scene, but again, very impactful, and it just gave me a lot of joy on the inside to see what was going on, and it was very emotional for me, to see Carmine Falcone get caught, and then to see the showdown between Penguin and Carmine, and then eventually Carmine being shot. There's a lot that happens between that one sequence. My next scene is probably going to be the hallway scene where the Batman is proceeding to find Carmine Falcone and he's going through the hallway to take out the bad guys, his bodyguards, and the entire scene is just illuminated with the muzzle flashes. I think this is a lot of people's, favorite scene, or at least in one of their top lists or whatnot, and I think it's pretty obvious why. It's a pretty intense scene if you go back and rewatch it, and Michael Giacchino does an amazing job by supporting it with the soundtrack that he does. In fact, it's the Batman theme, but it's remixed to have big bass to it, like just big drops and slams as Batman is taking out the bad guys. And Greg Fraser does an amazing job of just using the muzzle flashes to light up the scene. So I think it's one of those moments where both the person in charge of the sound and the person in charge of the cinematography come together and give us this byproduct that's really beautiful, really intense, and really gets you going. I still think about that scene a lot, and sometimes I get goosebumps just how beautifully done that scene was. I really hope something like that once again shows up in the sequels or future iterations of the Batman, because it was phenomenal. Now, for a lot of people, what I'm gonna say next is gonna be their favorite scene of all time, but for me, it's only my second favorite, and that is the Batman chase scene. So this chase scene is between the Batman and the Penguin, and they're both driving in cars, going on highways and avoiding getting hit by cars, and it's not really as much of the chase scene that I really like as much as two components that support it. One is the start of the chase scene as soon as Batman turns on his Batmobile. That is very beautifully done because when he turns it on at first you don't know what that sound is because it doesn't sound like a car, and that was the reason why they went with the sound. Originally they were just going to have the sound of the engine starting, but they decided that they wanted to confuse people at first by adding some sort of a weird jet engine sound to confuse people. And I think it's very well done. I think it really sets up the scene and gets your heart pumping and just gets you right into the mood of, oh crap, something's about to go down, this is going to be intense. And then the other component that really makes the chase scene beautiful is the ending of the chase scene when Batman is walking towards the Penguin. And I think that is one of the best cinematography scenes, shots, whatever you want to call it, moment in all of the entire Batman movie and any movie I've seen so far. It's very simple, but it's so well done and so genius, and I haven't seen anything like it before that I'm really impressed. It really blew me away, and I love trying to go back to the trailers and rewatch that scene with the musical score. And again, just like every other scene before, it gets me hyped, it gets me excited, and it's just full of energy and also dread to see Batman walking down so slowly, kind of like the boogeyman, kind of like the monster, you know, to create fear. It's amazing. And now my favorite scene in the entire Batman movie, I think is the best scene just because of how simple it is, yet it does so much for the character, and one that is probably unexpected is the opening Halloween scene. That by far is the best scene, and out of all the rewatches I've done, it's the scene that gets me the most excited, the most hyped. The reason why is, one, because you have the narration of Batman setting up the world that we're in, setting up the story, setting up what to expect. Then you have the music. You have the Batman theme, but it's slowly getting louder and louder and louder, and there's a sense of panic. Then you have the amazing dialogue within that monologue. And my favorite line in the entire movie is when he says, "People think I'm hiding in the shadows, but I am the shadows." So simple, so well done, and again, genius. Next, what I really like about this scene, what I thought was really mind-blowing, is the fact that you see the bad guys and you then contrast it with the dark shadows, and ordinarily you would expect Batman to come out of the dark shadows and start fighting the bad guys and taking them down. But Batman isn't there. There is no Batman in the dark shadows, but still the fear of darkness haunts the bad guys, and it creates fear and it creates tension. And to me, it's just awesome how you can have the Batman representing himself and how he's gonna come for you without him actually being there. Ordinarily, when you see the dark shadows, you always see action heroes come out and start fighting, but all we see is the dark shadows, criminals looking at it and then running away thinking that the Batman's gonna be there. They don't even want to find out that if he's there or not. They just want to get away from him, and that's amazing. And then to top it off, at the end of the Halloween scene when Batman finally saves the Asian guy, I really like how the Asian guy said, "Please don't hurt me." And it just goes to show that Batman isn't viewed in the public eye as a superhero just yet. He is still seen as a vigilante, kind of a criminal, kind of a scary guy. Not just to bad guys, but also to the regular citizens. And that's very different than the Batmans we've gotten before, and I'm all for it. I really appreciate all the things differently that's been done in this movie compared to the past movie, and that's the reason why I like the Batman over previous iterations. That's the reason why these small scenes stand out to me, because they give us new development and show how the Batman is different from the previous iterations. Overall, well done movie. These are my top 5 scenes. Let me know if you guys agree with me, disagree with me, or what were your top 5 scenes. Let me know. Anyway, I will see you guys next time.